Hello, my name is S.K. Williams, and today is my brother's birthday. It is also Palm Sunday. Nevertheless, I wish to give my brother a birthday present. However, we celebrated his birthday yesterday, on the 28th of March, rather than the 29th. This is because it is Palm Sunday, and Sunday in general. It's the day that we should be in church, dedicated to God. In addition, my brother passed away several years ago. I can't actually give him physical gifts, so rather I am dedicating a story to him. I have recently been approached by a publishing company, which may be interested in my work. There's no guarantee that it will be published, but if it's not, I can always take it to somewhere else. Right now, I'm working on developing 12 ideas because they don't want me to just turn in one. This is because if I turn in one, they may still think I'm a good writer, but not like that idea, and if I have nothing else to show them, they may have to pass me up. And this may sound daunting, having to write 12 novels, but keep in mind, I'm writing proof of concepts right now, so they're very short stories. I don't have to write a complete novel until after they've already accepted my idea, or at least told me they were interested in it. However, realistically, I can only work on 3 of these at a time, especially since I'm already working on 3 projects that I can't show them because this publisher describes itself as the McDonald's of fiction writing. They want a more generic science fiction or a more generic fantasy. Something that stays within the tropes and expectations of the genres, so that the reader knows exactly what they're getting and they can be guaranteed a more reasonable sales. It's an independent book publishing company, and it's not one of the big 5 publishers. And don't get me wrong, I want to write an engaging story with interesting characters. I really do. But part of the excitement of writing is coming up with a creative idea, and they want me to play within the bounds of expectation. And to me, that means that I'm writing boring stories because I write for a living. I'm not saying the actual stories that I'm producing will be boring. That's for the audience to decide. And I will certainly try my best to make the stories interesting. I want to make interesting and engaging characters that the audiences like and enjoy reading about, and I want these stories to be fun, stories that the audiences also like. But I am very much working within the bounds of expectation, so I'm not trying to create a whole new world. I'm taking pre-existing tropes and concepts and tweaking them into making them legally distinct worlds, but really the same thing we've seen as far as the world is concerned. And like I said, the first 3 are going to be dedicated to my late brother. I don't have titles for any of them yet. I will reintroduce each one as I do. But this second one is probably one he'll like more than the first, the one I sent yesterday. And I'll send a third one on the 29th of March 2026, according to the Julian calendar. Which, if one doesn't know, will unfortunately fall closer to Eastern Orthodox Pascha. But I will release it regardless. This second idea is one that, like the first, I have certain ideas in my head that are too vague for me to realistically convey to you, and I want to develop them more before I speak on them. Which is sad, because the bulk of the story that I can tell you about is probably not that copyrightable. It will certainly be less so than my previous one, where I had at least a few ideas that could be, and The idea is effectively Star Trek. I have a galactic federation of some sort, and it runs a space navy of some sort, and there's a crew on a starship that goes exploring and doing various missions. It is effectively Star Trek. And I can't really copyright any of that. Right now, I'm calling it by the working title, Generic Star Trek. But I have a second working title for it, and the second one is more legally distinctive, also not that good, and that is Star Space Voyage Quest. Whether or not I use that title for this project or any project is irrelevant. That is the name of my project right now, and I claim it. It's the only thing that's really unique about this right now. And I may use that name for something else. I don't think I'll be using it for this. But you already know what this is about. It is effectively Star Trek. Only not Star Trek. It's Star Trek where I change all the details so that it is legally distinct from Star Trek. And I know that other people have done this. Notably, Seth MacFarlane has done this with the Orville. And I'm one of the few people who loved Star Trek, who hates the Orville, but that's irrelevant. This isn't something new, and that's why I find it boring as a writer, because it's not really completely unique world building. It's just taking someone else's world and making modifications. Nevertheless, I have modified the idea. For example, I'm going to write this from a more conservative point of view. So imagine a Star Trek if it was being written by Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles. Presuming, of course, Matt Walsh was more interested in science fiction and fantasy than he actually is. He's not, but that's irrelevant. Let's say that we somehow have Matt Walsh, who is exactly the same way he is now, except he's excited by science fiction and wants to write a novel about science fiction. And he teams up with Michael Knowles and other conservatives like them. That is closer in line to what my brother would like, and it might make an interesting story. Certain differences between it and Star Trek, again, are that it doesn't envision a future utopian socialist state. It imagines a more conservative version that is more stable. But it also imagines a world where there's no transporter beams. You can't just beam down from one place to another. At least not in the early stories. I might allow that technology to be invented later, but I am interested in what would happen if people were forced to use shuttles and tools. And their uniforms do have pockets in them, and they carry tools more so than Star Trek. And the perspective is going to be far more conservative and traditional. So we're not going to base everything on consent-based morality, but more on traditional morality, at least as understood by modern conservatives, especially modern American conservatives, which happen to dominate conservatism even in Europe these days. This isn't the only such Star Trek that I plan on doing this way, but it is the one that I'm going to dedicate to my brother. And I'm going to base the characters more on a fusion between the characters from Star Trek, the original series, and Star Trek, the Next Generation. So we're going to have not Captain Kirk, not Captain Picard, but some odd fusion of Captain Kirk and Captain Picard with a few tweaks. And we're not going to have Geordie LaForge being the chief engineer. Well, we're not going to anyway. The Next Generation actually began with many chief engineers for the Enterprise, which was a silly idea to begin with. But the one we were mostly exposed to was Chief Engineer Argyle, who was in a few episodes in the first couple of seasons and then disappeared because the actor wrote fraudulent fan letters to himself, but that's beside the point. Someone like Scotty only merged with someone like Argyle, from what little we know about him. Things like that. I'll give more details as I work on it. But this is a story idea I dedicate to my dear departed late brother, hoping it's the sort of story he would have enjoyed. Happy birthday, John Thomas Williams. May you rest in peace, and may your spirit enjoy the work that I have dedicated into your honor. Thank you, God bless, and goodbye.